A boy became king, then his uncle took the throne from him. Exiled to a remote mountain village, he died at 16. But what happened next is even more shocking. No one claimed his body. The body of a former king floated down a river, and history recorded him not as a king, but as a criminal for 241 years. Now, if you've seen the Korean film The King's Warden, you already know how that story ends. But the film ends exactly where the real mystery begins. 241 years later, a king dreamed of a boy on a white horse. And because of that dream, the most calculated political project in all of Joseon history was set in motion. Today, we uncover the truth behind that dream. Winter, 1457. On the banks of a frozen river in Yungwol, the body of a boy was abandoned. He was Yi Hongwi, the sixth king of Joseon, known to history as King Danjong. He had become king at 12. Then his uncle, Grand Prince Suyang, seized the throne. Demoted to the title of Prince Nosan, a criminal's rank, he was exiled to the remote mountain village of Yungwol. He died at 16. The official record, the Annals of King Sejong, contains only one line: he took his own life. But the unofficial accounts tell a different story. The officials sent to carry out the execution could not bring themselves to administer poison to a child who had once been their king. According to accounts passed down through generations, a government slave strangled Danjong from behind with a bowstring. And the moment Danjong drew his last breath, that same man collapsed and died, coughing blood. Then came the detail that is almost impossible to believe. Under the shadow of the new king's authority, no one dared claim the body. The body of a boy who had been king of Joseon was thrown into the Donggang River and left to drift. That is when one man stepped forward, Hung-do, the village headman of Yungwol. In the middle of the night, he carried the body up into the mountains with his sons. If discovered, his entire family line would be executed. Legend says that in the dead of winter, they found one spot on the mountainside where the snow had melted, and a deer lay resting, then vanished. Hung-do recognized it as sacred ground. He buried the boy king there. That site is now known as Jangnung, King Danjong's royal tomb. After Danjong died, history erased him. There is a traditional Korean rhyme used to memorize all 27 kings of the Joseon dynasty. Danjong's name was not in it. For centuries, he was known only by his criminal title, Prince Nosan. Not a king, a disgraced nobleman. And he was not alone. Joseon's second king, King Danjong, had suffered the same fate. After passing the throne to his younger brother Taejong, he was honored in life as a retired king. But after his death, he received no official royal title, no posthumous name. The reason was simple. Taejong needed to justify his own power, and acknowledging a legitimate elder brother was inconvenient. Two kings, removed from the official record. And then 241 years passed. 1698. The reign of King Sukjong. One night, a boy appeared in Sukjong's dream. He was riding a white horse, and he was weeping. He said his home was too small, too cold. When Sukjong woke, he immediately ordered an investigation into Yungwol. What they found was a neglected, unmarked grave. the forgotten burial site of Prince No-san. Was this a genuine dream? A divine sign? Or did Sukjong already know exactly what he was doing? In 1681, Sukjong had already taken a first step. He restored Danjong's rank, arguing that a child born of a legitimate queen deserved to be called Grand Prince, not a disgraced nobleman. Then, in 1698, he went further. He granted the posthumous title of King Danjong. He named the tomb Jangnoon, and he officially restored him as a legitimate monarch of Joseon. 241 years after Danjong's death. In the same period, Sukjong also restored King Danjong's name, 260 years after his death. A beautiful story. But here is the question history never quite answers. Why Sukjong? Why then? And why go to such lengths to expose his own ancestors' crimes? King Sukjong was one of the most powerful monarchs in all of Joseon history. His reign was defined by brutal factional warfare, the Southerners against the Westerners, shifting alliances, political purges, an atmosphere of constant instability. Sukjong's method of control was radical. He would abruptly replace the ruling faction entirely, a tactic known as hwanguk, keeping every minister perpetually uncertain of his own position. For a king like this, the restoration of Danjong was not sentiment, it was strategy. 3 moves, 1 project. First, legitimacy. Danjong was the most purely legitimate king in all of Joseon's history. His father was the crown prince, his grandfather was King Sejong, his mother was the crown princess. He passed through every stage, royal grandson, crown prince, king, in perfect succession. No other king in Joseon's history could claim this lineage. By restoring Danjong, Sukjong was declaring, "This royal line is sacred, unbroken, and beyond question." Second, a loyalty standard. Among the scholar official class, a powerful sentiment had been growing. The 6 martyred ministers, those who died refusing to serve the king who had overthrown Danjong, were beginning to be seen as the truest model of loyalty. Sukjong understood this. By officially restoring Danjong, he was sending an unmistakable message to every minister alive. Serve one king, only one king, no matter what comes. Third, the most calculated move of all. How do you restore a king without admitting your ancestor was a usurper? Sukjong's logic was extraordinary. Danjong's demotion, he argued, was not Sejong's fault. It was the result of ministers pressuring the king. And Danjong's restoration was not a reversal of Sejong. It was an act of filial piety, a descendant correcting the injustice done to an ancestor. In one move, Sukjong protected Sejong's legacy, restored Danjong's honor, and strengthened his own authority. 3 outcomes, 1 dream. Whether that dream was real, or whether it was performance, we will never know. But this much is certain. Sukjong's project worked. Historical records from his reign note that there was not a single subject in Joseon who did not feel sorrow for Danjong's fate. Sukjong read that grief, and he turned it into power. And now, 600 years later, the boy on the white horse has a name. Not Prince No-san, not a criminal, King Danjong. History leaves us with a question that doesn't belong only to ancient Korea. When someone gives back a name that was taken, does it matter why they did it? Or does the name simply matter? The stories history almost forgot, but couldn't quite bury.